Hey guys, Phil here, hope you're all well. Have you ever wondered how we used to back up Xbox 360 games back in the day? Well, if you stick around, I'll show you how it was done. What I want to do now is talk about the different types of game disc you can run into with the original Xbox and the Xbox 360. Now, the different types of disc are called XGD, and that stands for Xbox Game Disc. So the original Xbox console, the Xbox One, the original Xbox, was called XGD1, and obviously that stands for Xbox Game Disc 1. You could burn them with any standard DVD burner. There was no special firmware you needed. You could just burn it with a DVD burner and it wasn't a problem. Then when the Xbox 360 came out, we went to XGD2. It's the Xbox Game Disc 2. Again, nothing special there. You could burn them with a standard DVD burner, but towards the end of the Xbox 360's life, Microsoft brought out something called XGD3. And you cannot burn them with a standard DVD burner. And the reason for that is if you take a look at a dual layer disc, you will see that when you burn that disc, the disc is not burnt completely to the end of the disc. There's a little portion of the disc that is not burnt. And I think it's, off the top of my head, it's around about 700 megabytes that doesn't get burnt. And it's just a little bit of the disc, you know, because you don't want to start pushing towards the end of the disc because you might get bad burns. But what Microsoft did with their dual layer discs was they opened up that 700 megabyte space and created XGD3. Now, for a little while, obviously, you couldn't burn discs. Microsoft was like, yay, we've defeated piracy. Now we've got XGD3. They can't burn those discs. But again, like what normally happens, C4 ever came to the rescue and he created a special firmware for certain DVD burners called Burner Max firmware, which allows you to burn that extra 700 meg. So then we can now burn XGD3 discs, and Microsoft, failed again, as they say. So what I'll do now, guys, is I'll show you the burner I used to use back in the day. That's got Burner Max firmware flashed to it. And here she is. This is the DVD burner I used to use back in the day to burn all my Xbox 360 games that were specifically XGD3. This drive has been flashed with the Burner Max firmware, and you can see the model number. It's IHAS 124. Now there's different models of this you can buy, but if you want to get one and you want to flash Burner Max firmware to it, you need to make sure it's the B model. The A model will not work. You need the B model. But yeah, this drive is flashed with Burner Max firmware. Now the reason I put it to the side is, just give me a second. So I actually have two of them. Not because I was doing a lot of burning back in the day, guys. You know, I wasn't burning games and selling them. I'll never do that, guys. That's not my style. Just mainly did it for myself. But the reason I've got two of them is redundancy. You know, just in case one failed, I had one ready to go. I could just slot in and use. But yeah, they both work perfectly fine. They still both work perfectly fine. I can burn XGD3, XGD2, XGD1 with these burners because they've been flashed with Burner Max firmware. What I want to do now, before we start ripping this game, and this is the game I'm going to be ripping, Deus Ex Human Revolution. What I want to do is talk a little bit about the structure of an Xbox 360 game disc. So let's open it up and we take a look at the disc. Now you're not going to see this obviously, but I'm just showing you the disc. Just do that so I can put it flat and then we can see the disc and then I can talk about it. So generally when you got an Xbox 360 game disc like this, there are sectors and partitions that are not visible by a standard DVD player or DVD-ROM drive. So what happens when you put this game disc into a standard DVD-ROM or a DVD player is there is a partition on this disc that just holds video, and when you put that in to a DVD-ROM drive or a DVD player, it will play a video telling you put this disc in an Xbox 360. What that DVD-ROM drive cannot see are the security sectors and the game partition. It cannot see that. All it can see is that DVD-ROM layer. So when you put this into a DVD-ROM in your PC, what you will see is it will tell you that there is a round about 200 megabytes of disk space. Yeah, that's not right. You're not going to fit this game in 200 megabytes. And the reason for that is, like I said, the security sectors and the game partition are not readable in a standard DVD-ROM drive. Now, how do we get around that? Well, it's very simple. We use something like this. Now, this drive originally started out as a genuine Xbox 360 drive. I ripped this out of a faulty Xbox 360 that red ringed, and I converted it into a ripping drive by flashing special firmware to it that allows me to rip Xbox 360 games. Not only Xbox 360 games, but I can rip original Xbox games with this as well. So let's talk about this drive. Like I mentioned, guys, a standard DVD-ROM drive cannot see the security sectors of the disc, and it cannot see the game partition of the disc. But this thing can. Why? Because obviously it was an original Xbox 360 drive. Now there's a number of Xbox 360 drives you can use to rip Xbox 360 games and Xbox games. There's actually 3 of them, but one of them is not recommended. The one that's not recommended is a Samsung TSH943A. The reason for that is it can't read AP 2.5. Now AP stands for anti-piracy. Microsoft started to change their protection on their discs, and they came up with AP 2.5. Now that Samsung drive cannot read AP 2.5. So if you're ripping games with that Samsung drive, it's not a very good idea. The 2 drives that are recommended are this one. So this drive is a BenQ VAD6038, and the second one that's recommended is a Liteon DG16D2S. Now, if you hook up this drive like it is when you straight away rip it out the Xbox 360, it's not going to work, guys. The reason for that is Windows will not detect this drive. Even if you've got, like I have here, which is a SATA-to-USB bridge, I'm powering it using a CK3 Pro. If I was just to rip the drive out of an Xbox 360, hook all this up to it, plug it in, Windows would not recognize it unless I had a certain chipset, and you're not going to get that chipset now on modern PCs. You're just not going to get it. It was around back in the day. I can't remember off the top of my head. It was a VIA chipset. If I remember, I'll put an annotation round about here. Just a quick insert from the future, guys. I went and found my PCI SATA card. You can see it's also got IDE. But the most important thing about this card is it was used to flash Xbox 360 drives back in the day. And the most important part about it is the chipset. If we take a look, it's the 6421A chipset, which is what was predominantly used to flash Xbox 360 drives back in the day. But yeah, the hoops we had to jump through to flash Xbox 360 drives, guys, was just crazy back in the day. And if you was lucky enough to have one of those chipsets, some of the Xbox 360 drives you can connect to a PC and it would natively see it. But generally, like this, if you was just to take it and hook it up to a PC, it's just simply not going to work. Now, the way around that is Team Executor, along with obviously C4Ever and a lot of the other fantastic guys that are around in the days when we were flashing Xbox 360 drives, created a custom firmware for these drives, and that firmware is called 0800 version 3 firmware. And what that firmware does is it creates a bridge. It's like, you can think of it like a bridge. So what happens is the drive keeps all the functionality of an original Xbox 360 drive, but it allows us to connect it to Windows, and Windows see the drive. So it's like that bridge. It's that bridge between Windows not seeing the drive and Windows seeing the drive, but keeping all the functionality of the drive. Now, because this drive is an original Xbox 360 drive, we can put the game disc in here and we can unlock the game partitions, and we can unlock the security sectors, and we can read the entire disc and make a backup of it. So yeah, this is what an Xbox 360 ripping drive looks like. What I want to talk about now is the actual drive itself and the problems you're going to have hooking it up to a PC or a laptop. Now, if we take a look at the back, I'll turn it around, we'll look at the back of it. Let's move the USB cable out of the way. If I unplug this, you can see the connector for it is just a standard SATA connector, and all I've got here is a USB bridge. So it just takes the SATA, converts it to USB, so I can plug it into my laptop. And the reason for that is because my laptop doesn't have a SATA connector. Obviously it's a laptop, so you know, I'm connecting it through USB. So all this is just a bridge. But if we take a look at the other connector, you can see here it's not a standard connector, right? It's not a standard SATA power connector. Now, what this cable carries is power. So this is where the drive gets its power, but it also carries a few other signals. And one of the most important signals is eject. So when you press the eject button on your Xbox 360, it's not actually coming from the drive, it's coming from the actual Xbox 360. It's coming through this cable here and telling the drive to eject. There is no eject button on this drive. You can see I've still got the Xbox 360 face for the drive, but like I said, there is no eject signal. And that's where something like this little device comes in here. Now this device here is overkill. This is the Executor CK3 Pro version. You can tell it's the Pro version because it has the serial portion here. What this was used for was to flash some Xbox 360 drives. But you can get the Lite version, which is basically used for power, which is what I'm using this for. I'm basically using it for power. You can see it's got a Molex connector just here, and obviously then that gets converted into power and powers the drive. But one of the most important things it's got here, this button here, eject, and that's how I eject the drive, by pressing that button, and obviously the tray will come open. But yeah, this thing's overkill. If you're going to do this, I'd get the Lite version, the CK3 Lite. You can still buy these on AliExpress and eBay. They pop up on eBay every now and again. But all I'm using this for is for the Molex to power connector just here, and obviously the eject so I can get the tray open. But yeah, that's it guys. Now if you obviously have a PC that you have a SATA connector on board, then you don't need this bridge. You won't need it. You can just go get a normal SATA cable and connect it straight to your SATA, because obviously once this drive is flashed with 0800 firmware, it will be recognized in Windows, so you don't have to worry about that. You can just hook it up with SATA, but I'm going through this SATA bridge to USB because obviously I'm using a laptop and my laptop doesn't have a SATA port. But yeah, that's about the drive. This is what I used back in the day to rip Xbox 360 games, and like I said guys, this drive is also capable of ripping original Xbox games as well, so it's a double whammy. So I've powered on my laptop. All I need to do now is pick which version of Windows I'm going to use. So I'm going to go to school, old school, or the school that got knocked down to build the old school. I think I'll go old school. Let's go Windows 7. So yeah, if you want to know how you triple boot Windows like you see on this laptop, I've got a video on my YouTube channel that shows you how to do it, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. And as you can see, we're booting Windows 7. So what I need to do now is obviously hook up the drive to this laptop, and I'm going to be using this SATA bridge, SATA-to-USB Bridge for a better term, and obviously to power it, this drive, I'm going to be using the CK3 Pro. Now there's a quirk to hooking up this drive to a PC guys, and I'm just remembering this, it's been a long time, but if I was to plug this in now and power on the drive, for some unknown reason it would take a couple of minutes for the drive to show up in Windows, which is a bit weird. So you have to do it a certain way, and I'm trying to remember, I think you turn the drive on, you invoke and eject, and then you plug in the drive, and then Windows will recognize it pretty much straight away. And I think it's because of this SATA to USB bridge. It's not powered, you know, it's only data that is traveling through this. So if you plug this in before you power the drive on, I think this doesn't recognize it, and obviously then Windows doesn't recognize it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to test my theory. So I'm going to power on, I'm going to press the eject, and there we go, we get the eject from the tray. So that tells me the drive is being powered okay. And now what I need to do is move that to the side so I can plug in the USB, and hopefully Windows, there you go, did you hear the ding? And let's have a look, see if it's shown up on my computer, and there it is. So yeah, that's remembering how to do things guys. It's been a long time since I've ripped an Xbox 360 game. What I'm going to do now is I've got everything up top. I'm going to plug in the HDMI so I can capture it using my capture card, so you can see this a little bit better. So I've hooked up through HDMI, hopefully I'm capturing it. It looks like I'm capturing it. But yeah, I'm ready to go guys. If we take a look you can see the drive has been recognized by Windows, and that's because obviously we're running that 0800 firmware, version 3 firmware, and it allows Windows to see the Xbox 360 drive. Now what I want to do is show you what happens when you put an Xbox 360 game into a DVD-ROM drive, because at the moment this drive is acting as a standard DVD-ROM drive. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go grab my game disc. I'm going to press the eject button on the drive, pop in the original Xbox 360 game, and what we'll see, if we take a look here, it will give us information, and you can see if we take a look, it says the disk is 183 megabytes. Now that can't be right, surely, right? Because it's got to be a bigger disk than that. It can't be 183 megabytes. How do you fit the whole game on that? Well, that's the problem. When you put an Xbox 360 game in a standard drive, it cannot see the game partition. It's totally locked off to a standard drive. Now what you're looking at now is the DVD video portion of the disc, and I'll show you what I mean by that. If I run this, you'll see it will come up with a video animation telling you to put the disc into an Xbox 360, and that's known as the DVD video partition of the disc. But we can't see the game and the security sector partition of the disc on a standard DVD-ROM drive. But because this is a Xbox 360 drive, we can unlock that partition, and it allows us to rip that game. So I'm going to show you that now. So let's rip this game, and it's actually pretty easy. So I'm going to go into my D drive. Obviously the game disc is in the drive, ready to go. I'm going to go to Xbox 360 tools. I'm going to go into Xbox Backup Creator, and I'm going to run Xbox Backup Creator. Now let's move that to the center there so it's easier for you to see. And here you can see, here's our drive. It's shown up in Windows. It's coming through SPTI. You can see it's the VAD6038. Now what I need to do now is go to options, and I need to tell this software what drive I'm using, and I'm just going to go down on this pull down menu, and I'm going to select that, and it's an Xbox 360 disc, so we're good there. What I need to do now is go over to drive tools, and this is where the magic happens. If you take a look, you can see it's come up as media type DVD-ROM, and if we take a look how much we've used, it's 183 megabytes. That's not going to fit a game on. What we need to do now is press the magic button to unlock the game partition, and this will only work when you've got one of these drives flashed with a 0800 version 3 firmware. So I'm going to press the magic button, and it's this button here, toggle lock, which you can see toggles the game partition. I'm going to press that and watch what happens. Boom, and there we go. We can see it's come up media type DVD-ROM, but look at the size of it now, 6.81 gigabytes. Now we can see the game partition. Now we can see the security sectors. Now we can rip the disk. So what I'm going to go over to next is read, and I'm going to put complete backup just here, and I'm going to click start. Now it's going to ask me where do I want to save the image. I'm going to click on D drive, and I'm going to call it Deus Ex Human Revolution. There we go, you can see that, and I'm going to click save, and guess what we're doing now, guys? We are ripping game. Now if you take a look, the first thing it does is it rips that DVD video, you know, the part with the put this game in an Xbox 360 video. It's ripping that first. Then once it's done that, it will start ripping the security sectors. Then when it's done that, it will spin up the drive and it will start ripping the game partition. So at the moment we're ripping the DVD video, obviously because that's what contains the DVD video when you put it in a DVD player. So we're just ripping that at the moment. Then we'll start ripping the security sectors. Here we go, now we're ripping all the security sectors. There you go, and the drive has spun up. Hopefully you can hear that. And now we're ripping the game partition. So yeah, there you go, guys. We are actually ripping an Xbox 360 game. So what I'm going to do now is, obviously, I'll let this finish, guys. I'm not going to film the whole lot because it takes about 10 minutes to rip the game. But once it's done, I'll come back and then show you the next step that we have to do. And there we go. We have just ripped an Xbox 360 game disc. And that's how it was done back in the day. Now there's one extra step we need to do now, guys. And I'll show you that. So we finished ripping our Xbox 360 game. You can see it's here. Here's the ISO. Just here. Now you may be going, oh well, that's great, I'll just take that ISO, burn that to a dual layer vibratum disc using a iXtreme Burner Max flashed DVD burner drive, and we're ready to go. No, there's an extra step we need to do. What we need to do is make sure that game dump that we've just done is 100% green lit with I'm gonna go in it here. It's called ABGX360, and if I run it, it stands for Alt Binaries Games Xbox 360. Everybody called it ABGX360. Now what this program does is it will scan through that dump we've just made and make sure everything is green lit. So we get the green light on everything. The security sectors are good, the game partition's good, everything. It scans everything just to make sure we've got a 100% legit game dump. So I'm gonna open the ISO just here, and then I'm gonna launch it, and what you'll see is it will start verifying the game to make sure that is 100% legitimate dump. And as you can see at the moment, you can see the video CRC matches, the V0 matches, the V1 matches, the PFI matches, the DMI matches, the SS matches, the XEX matches, and what it's doing now is it's going through the actual game partition to make sure that it's a legitimate 100% good dump. You do this before you burnt it, because if you did this type of thing and you just burnt that ISO and you put it in your Xbox 360 and you've got bad things like that, Microsoft will detect that. They won't ban your console straight away. What they did is they'd flag your console, which is them monitoring your console, right? So they're monitoring and they're just waiting for you to make a few more mistakes. And when you do, boom, ban, hammer, time, baby. But you can see when I say everything's green lit, all CRCs match, verification was successful. So that's a perfect dump of Deus Ex Human Revolution limited edition, baby. So that's a perfect dump. Now we've verified that's a perfect dump of the game. What I do now is obviously I'd load that ISO into image burn. I'd use a Burner Max firmware flashed DVD-ROM drive, obviously burner drive, and then I'd burn this, the ISO, to a dual layer verbatim, and then once I'd done that, I'd verify it again just to make sure that it's burnt properly, and then I'd pop that into my Xbox 360. That drive has been flashed with custom firmware, and it would just boot like it was a genuine game. Ah dear, it never goes to plan, does it, guys? It never goes to plan. What I wanted to do in this part of the video was show you how you burn Xbox 360 games, but I can't do that, and I'll show you why. If you take a look at this little device here, this is a SATA-to-USB bridge, and you can see it's plugged in here, and obviously this takes the SATA and converts it to USB, but it also powers the optical drive. But watch what happens when I try to power this thing on. Absolutely nothing. You can hear the button clicking. So yeah, it looks like my SATA to USB bridge. Oh, and there you go. You can see there's the problem. Look at it. It's hiccuping. Turn that off and you can see. I'll show you it plugged in here. It's just here. You can see it's plugged in. And yeah, so it looks like my USB to SATA bridge has taken a shit, as they say in the West. Nothing ever goes to plan, does it? So that's that part of the video out the window. Bummer. And I was all prepared as well, guys. I was going to crack open this brand new packet of vibrating dual layer DVD-Rs as well. That's not going to happen now, is it? So if we take a look at this thing, this is my SATA to USB 2 bridge. That's what these are called, guys. They're called bridges. People call them converters, but their proper name is a bridge. First thing you may be asking, why do I use this? Well, what you got to remember is the PCs that are in my home are in modern cases, and they don't have 5 1/4 inch bays. So there's no way I can hook up a SATA 5 1/4 inch drive to any of those PCs, so I have to use this bridge. But yeah, this thing is toast, guys. I tried this with the other drive as well, and it was doing exactly the same thing. It was doing that hiccup that you heard in the video. I measured the voltage going to this thing. It's perfectly fine. It measured 12.2 volts, which is, you know, this thing's 12 volts, so it's nuts on when it comes to the voltage. I measured the 5 volt as well, and that's going to this. It's perfectly fine. So the voltage and everything is fine. That's in this device. The only thing I can think it is this is an I2C EEPROM just here, and I think the firmware may have gone on it. And that's probably what's happened, because generally when firmware fails you get that hiccuping, because it's trying to start up, right, and then the firmware is failed, it's got corrupted or something, and then it just resets and tries to load the firmware again, because obviously you've got this which is loading the firmware, right? So it powers on, this reads the firmware, this can't read the firmware, so it resets and tries to read it again, and resets and tries to read it again, and you get that hiccuping going on. So I reckon this I2C EEPROM here has failed, and it's just killed the entire device, which is a bit of a bummer really, because I've had this thing for God knows how many years. I've had it for what, 10 years probably, somewhere around there, probably longer. I know the modern one's USB 3, and obviously this is USB 2. Some of the even more later ones are USB-C. So I'm gonna have to get one of those, obviously, because I need to hook up my old optical drives, and this thing's toast. So yeah, sod's law, guys, gets you every time you want to do something in a video. No, not having it, because this thing's knackered. Bummer. What I thought I'd do now is show you my Xbox 360 backup collection. So if I take the lid off this case just here, you can see all my Xbox 360 backup discs, and I'll pull some of them out so you can see. There's Borderlands, behind it should be Borderlands 2, and if you look at some of them, like this one here, you can see I've written XGD3 on them, because obviously with it being XGD3 you can't read that disc in a normal DVD burner, because it won't be able to read the full disc. You still have to read it in that Burner Max firmware DVD-ROM burner. But yeah, I'd say there's about what, 120 games in this case. I'd say 10% of my games are genuine, the rest like this are all backups. But I've got a confession to make, guys. This is not the only box. Give me a second. Oh, just grab it. Oh, it's heavy. I'll put it on there, and there we go. We've got another box rammed with Xbox 360 games. So yeah, there's about 240 games here, guys. Now I would say the vast majority of these I got from using it, so that would be a place like alt.binaries.xbox.360. I would say 20 to 25% of these games I ripped myself, but like I said, predominantly got them from using it. But yeah, that's my Xbox 360 backup collection. Yeah, I was a wrong 'un back in the day, guys. There you go, guys. That's how we used to rip Xbox 360 games back in the day. Hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. Like, comment, subscribe, all the usual stuff. And as always, I'll catch you on the next one. Winner, winner. We're ripping Xbox 360 games like it's 2007, baby. Catch you next time, guys.